Welcome, Canada, our great overlord, Prime Minister Captain Blackface, our brothers in the Taliban, and of course, whatever lawyers hired to watch this show for whatever reasons, probably to sue me. Maybe to not sue me, who knows? This is your favorite part of the week. It is Uninterrupted, the show where I ramble on and on and on and on, and then on some more. All right, this week, sorry about last week for reasons, two reasons we were not out there live, so I'm going to be going over the results of the most recent election. What does the next 4 years of Trudeau look like? What does the pathway for Trudeau look like? What will be the goals of Trudeau this time through the order? What does it look like for the other parties? Will they survive? Will they not survive? And we'll get into all that. So thanks so much for being here. I'll try and get to whatever comments and questions, concerns, like, share, subscribe, it all helps out, blah, 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 blah. So to go back to 2019, I would like to say that I was pretty right about what I predicted in a Trudeau's minority approach would be. If you remember, my big thing is I said, all right, I did, one, he'll continue to screw over the West. But my call in 2019 was he is going to be big on pushing social media censorship, because I was arguing, and I think, from context, with his media bailout, with his bribe to the media, I had outlined his 3-step plan of monopolizing the flow of information, because he does have authoritarian tendencies. All right. So my thing was there is, okay, first you start with the carrot, right? You give $600 million to mass media organizations. You're starting to see the dividends of that pay off now, in the sense of just sort of how they cover, liberal nonsense. So you give the carrot in the sense of the big organizations now rely upon the government for survival. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail of how, it's not like each journalist is getting a dollar amount paycheck and that's forcing them consciously to change their decisions, but just sort of how the mechanisms would work to break the infrastructure. So that's the carrot. And I said the stick was, you saw them engaged in lawfare against Rebel Media and True North Media, how they were slapping opposing media with frivolous lawsuits and forcing them to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in court, just to fight off the government. Now, the government didn't care about losing this, doesn't care about any principles. The government just liked to basically punish anyone who wouldn't go against them. So you saw, hey, carrot, anyone who's friendly to us, mainstream organizations, big things, or you want to think the trusted media, you will be trusted. We will call you the trusted media, and the trusted media is allowed into this treasure trove of gold, right? That was the carrot. The stick was any dissident media. You go out there, you start Ezra Levanting around the place, whack, 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 whack. No, you're going to have to spend $100,000 in court. So the financial incentives to bend down, kiss the ring of Trudeau and sort of be trusted media sources and do trusted media things, that is very lucrative. To go against that is very, very costly. I can tell you something about that in lawfare. Liberals aren't the only one who's employ it. So the third thing, and I said the reason why I see the big thing that Trudeau will try and accomplish in his second term is to censor social media is because, well, there's now another element to the flow of information. You can take care of the mainstream media outlets and the big media outlets through lawfare, through bribes and money, through big government and big punishment and all that stuff. What you cannot silence through any of those means is this show, your Twitter account, your Instagram, right? It's the ability for individual people to disseminate information they like. So that was a big threat to the Trudeau government, which is why you saw Bill C-10, which is the bill that was tame enough that the Conservatives could oppose, and then Bill C-36, which was a horrific violation of every principle we hold dear in terms of free speech. And because that one was so egregious, the Conservatives were too afraid to fight back against it. Now, the Conservative senators did their only pull the only trick they know how to pull and ran away. So the Conservative senators, what they did is they ran away. They went on vacation, which means they shut it down in the House. And because Trudeau called another election, it actually starts the process on these bills again. So do you really think Justin Trudeau is going to all of a sudden learn the value of free speech? Do you think he was visited by the ghost of George Washington's past and, had a dream with Thomas Jefferson and John Adams writing letters to him and then, oh, I've changed my mind, and now I actually believe in the fundamental values of Western civilization. Never mind, oopsie doodles on that one. Mulligan, my bad. I doubt that. I doubt that very much. Instead, you're probably going to see round 2 of this. So all of Trudeau's worst impulses will come back. Now, there's a question of so it really comes down to how ideologically motivated is Justin Trudeau, how intelligent is Justin Trudeau, and how consistent is Justin Trudeau, and persistent is he going to be? In terms of intelligence, I've covered this one before. Like, I think he's just above average, which is actually the most dangerous level of intelligence you could have in a world leader. You'd want like 2 standard deviations above the mean would be average. He's about 1, so he's below average for the position he should hold, but above average in general population terms, which makes him incredibly dangerous in terms of a lack of meaningful intelligence going on there. So in terms of complex, long strategic thinking, I don't think he is really that capable of making detailed 3-year plans on how to accomplish an abstract goal through the powers of Parliament. I don't think he has that level of cognitive capacity, but I do think he has some cognitive capacity and wants to do some things, and this sort of pushes him along the track. So how do we get there? Okay. Speaking of lawfare, what's the status of tools lawsuit against you? I remember saying last September. Yeah, so I'm trying not to say anything about this. For full transparency, the lawfare, Aaron O'Toole's first case against me. Last week, there was my hearing. I'm not going to say anything about it because I know they're watching right now. So if I say it went really bad, it went really well, it went okay. If I say any of those things, and guys, I'm not saying anything, not you guys, lawyers watching, right? Then they'll immediately throw a hissy fit, light themselves on fire. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. Mr. Boardman went on the internet and said the hearing went fill in the blank. This is atrocious. It is the worst thing that's ever happened to Western civilization. Everyone is dead because of him. Many people have died. This is worth $2.5 billion. Mr. Boardman now owes the Conservative Party and their number one thing. So I'm going to wait for a decision. Decision is pending. So hearing happened. I still maintain that everything I said was true. I had proof of everything I said. They wanted me to say more, ironically, but let's leave it at that there. As soon as we have a decision, I will let us know. But I'm just trying not to fumble on the 5-yard line or do something I'm trying not to Deshaun Jackson this one. Great football reference from me, because Deshaun Jackson's like 34 years old. Can he just not get in the friggin' end zone? I'm so glad he's never been on the Packers. Deshaun Jackson would be my least favorite person. He gets a touchdown, then lollygags, turns. Okay, never mind. Don't do that. Don't Deshaun Jackson. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's get back into the meat of this. So we have. Remember, like, subscribe, share. Every time you like this video, Aaron O'Toole gets diarrhea. So, all right. Where does this leave the country? So Justin Trudeau, will he reenact his, all the failed policies? Like, will he go back to the drawing board? Will he start the process again on C10? Will he go back to C36? Is that a priority, right? There are so many other ways to destroy the country. There are much better ways to destroy our civil liberties right now, mostly through vaccine mandates, COVID mandates, vax passes, digital tracking of the population, taking us 2 steps closer to a Chinese social credit system. So I think, from a sense of, and I don't think he willfully wants to destroy the country, but I think he is a man that he's not a high level player, let's say, in the cultural games. Now, he is the prime minister, and he does have a high level position. What I mean by this is he is a man very affected by the narrative, it looks like. So when he sees, the COVID stuff, I don't think his motivations for being draconian and authoritarian on COVID are to consciously enact the new world order or, pave the way for Klaus Schwab. I actually think he's, again, this is my sort of assessment of him being just 1 standard deviation above the mean on intelligence. I perceive Justin Trudeau's views on COVID a little bit more like your really concerned cousin or aunt or general population Canadian who has sort of been propagandized to on this and is very concerned and sees the non-COVID compliers as the enemy. So I see Justin Trudeau legislating COVID not so much from a save the world perspective, which it might be some narcissist trying to save the world, and I think this is tied into it, but I see his views on COVID a lot more sort of low level, where it's like, I need to take revenge against my enemies. I need to hurt the bad guys. I need to stop the bad anti-vaxxers. Do you believe he can actually ban unjabbed Canadians from leaving the country on a plane? I don't think he has the power to. No, I don't like what the Canadian courts can do. Who knows? Does Justin Trudeau have the power to ban unvaccinated Canadians from leaving? I don't believe he has that power. Now, does Justin Trudeau have the power to ban unvaccinated Americans from coming into Canada, unvaccinated foreigners? Yes, he does have that power. So I don't believe he has that power, but this hasn't stopped anyone yet. Yeah, I heard about this. Okay, so there's like Harvard going remote because 100% vaccination rate, but there's still outbreaks. Yeah, and this is sort of a failure of again the government and the health organizations, which we'll get into later, to sort of tell the truth. And we can go on this now. Like I've been saying for a while, a lot of the big problems we're facing now is lying, is objective lying. And I was saying, don't lie or don't tell big lies on this. Because this is not going to go away. And I've said, listen, you can justify lies if you think it's going to act, 2 weeks, and you can really, really mitigate 90% of the damage with a short-term lie, and then 1 week later say, hey, listen, the reason why we had to tell you this is because we had to get everyone inside for 1-2 days, just blah 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 blah. But like you can only pull that trick once, and it only works in a short-term emergency. If you have to go on a long-term thing, which is now, it doesn't work. So this is just another one of the, dozens of lies told by the major health organizations and misrepresentations going in that sort of has them hosted by their own petard. And this is sort of the lie that COVID would give full immunity. And it wasn't really a lie. I mean, this can be explained by the fact that, we were talking about the vaccines being 90-95% effective. So a 90% effective vaccine, you can still get it, right? So everyone knew it wasn't 100%. But the vaccines were being sold as a silver bullet. And then not as a silver bullet, and then back. So the fact that the health agencies have oscillated on this, and then, listen, if you disagree with me here, fine. Like I'm fully confident that most people here can pull up a clip of our health authorities saying something that just fully affirmed everything I just said, and then something from the same authorities within a few months contradicting everything I just said, which is another one of the problems. So I mean, you can still get COVID if you have the vaccine, and we've known that going in. The answer is it should just mitigate it. Here's the problem, though, is we are being sold on this sort of silver bullet. We're sold on this zero COVID, and this is why the windmills are my greatest arch nemesis in all of society. And these COVID vaccines. What's happening now is directly connected to the windmills in Ontario. Directly. Okay, the windmills in Ontario, recycling everywhere, windmills everywhere are the cause of all of society's problems. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but they are my arch nemesis, and they are like, they're like the main bad guy. And I say this because, especially on COVID, and we're talking about zero COVID here. This is the same as windmills thought. What tends to regress our society, or I was going to use I think the best word is artard, reted, but not in a derogatory way, but it tends to hold back progress. One of the biggest things that delays our development as a society is this concept of the search of perfection when it comes to meta policy. Okay, so the search for perfection, listen, no one is perfect, we all know that, but the search for perfection is idolized in professional athletes, let's say, right? Vladimir Guerrero, right? His search for perfection makes him better. And you don't want to ever settle on being really good as an athlete. You always want to push yourself to be better and strive for perfect, knowing you can never get there, but you try. But there becomes a much bigger problem when it comes to societal meta policy, when we have this even crazier approach where it's not like, try and be perfect and settle for just improving. It's where we aim for the most perfect thing ever, and then we legislate going towards a goal we can never attain. And this becomes a problem because then we start building and spending billions on things that we know will not work, the windmills, recycling, which both make the environment worse. But in this sense, zero COVID. Right? So zero COVID is impossible. Like maybe it's possible in New Zealand if you never let Brandon in. Like if you go full island, you lock everyone down, you don't let anyone return home, you don't let anyone leave, you turn into a prison island, yeah, you can probably get to zero COVID. But that means no tourists ever coming to New Zealand again, no imports, no exports. You go back to hunter-gatherer style. So you can have zero COVID in New Zealand long term. It's possible, but you will have to go hunter-gatherer and regress a few centuries. So I don't think we're going to do that. In the sense of what zero COVID is right, we're trying to get down to zero, which is it's not possible. It's a respiratory illness. We cannot get down to zero, right? We have to learn to live in a world with COVID-19 in a way that is feasible for everyone to go forward. And the problem is, especially with the vaccine mandates, the vaccine passports, what we are doing is we are trying to get to zero COVID. And then we are punishing people, the bad people, the anti-maskers, the evil, terrible people who will not, download Khalid Rashid's new app, right? We're trying to vilify them because they are preventing us from getting to utopia, which is zero carbon emissions, zero COVID, right? We want in the insane push to get to zero, and the insane push to get to perfect, we ignore better. And that's my problem with the windmills, zero COVID, zero carbon. No, this is in our pursuit for literal perfection in terms of meta policy, which is not possible. We ignore better, and we don't try and get better. We try and get perfect. And this is severely damaging to us. And you see this in both energy policy, which I've been railing at for years now. And this is the same mentality it's taking on COVID. And a lot of people have this zero COVID mentality, and it had to be disabused from people, like internal family things. Like, my younger brother and I disagree on literally everything politically, literally everything, most things, like everything of importance. Okay. I love him. He's great, but we disagree on everything. It's good to have family to disagree with. But he was a zero COVID proponent. He wanted to get to zero. He wears 2 masks when he drives alone in the car. God bless him. He was, hunting down vaccines at the beginning. He was texting me vaccine thing. I'm like, don't worry. Okay. I'll get it when I get it. Right. He was on it. And he was taking the approach that the lockdowns were not hard enough. We needed to go harder, enough with the half measures, full lockdown for a month, like just go full lockdown, no stores, no this, no that. And then, it was the doctors in my family had to kind of explain to him that, like, no matter what you do, zero COVID is impossible. Zero is impossible. You will never get to zero. There is no zero. It's not how things work. It's not feasible from a logistical standpoint. It's not feasible from a medical standpoint. There's nothing you can do to get to zero. All right. However, despite this being the dominant ideology within the medical community, right? So this is this weird schism and these weird chills where there is no legitimate conversation in the medical community about zero COVID. There is a legitimate conversation in the medical establishment and the political communities about zero COVID and how to get to zero, right? This is all of Australia and New Zealand right now. It's also major parts of Canada, so it's more like, professors of health sciences, not so much medical doctors who are pushing this. So we are trying to get to zero, and because we are trying to do policies that get zero, right? Maybe if we mandate and COVID vaccine and this and the passports and this thing and that thing, and we find people $1 million for running on a business, we do all these things, right? We ignore the fact that we can do better, right? We might have to issue perfection, right? And this is something politicians have a very hard time of saying. We need to do away with the pursuit of absolute perfection. We will not have zero carbon emissions. We will never be able to fully use renewable. The sun will never fully power the planet to a means we are comfortable with now. That is not possible, but we can do better. Natural gas is better than oil. Oil is better than coal. We can have cleaner coal capture technologies like they do in Saskatchewan. We can have cleaner oil rigging technologies. We can have cleaner fracking. Fracking can be cleaner than natural gas. We can innovate here. We can push innovation. We can open up free markets. We can let human ingenuity take us forward and reduce the amount of energy we use. That's a very tough sell to people. Well, when you explain to them, no, but it doesn't have slogans, right? It's hard to turn that into one half line of like, better than perfection is, don't chase perfection, just do a bit better, right? That's the hard line that we don't sell people. So let's sort of, go back to what we're talking about here. Okay. So what is Justin Trudeau's sort of goals here? Okay. And I see Justin Trudeau as a potential zero COVIDer, all right? Because the medical establishment, like when I medical establishment, I mean Tam, Hinshaw, Henry, Williams, your own Theresa Tam or Dr. Fauci. Wherever you are in the world, you have a Dr. Theresa Tam or a Dr. Fauci telling you what to do. These people are liars. They cannot be trusted. Nothing they say I treat as science. Everything they say I take with a heavy dose of skepticism, and you have to research for yourself, but it's also biased these days. It's really hard to determine, but we're in a sad state where you cannot trust the medical institutions to report the news accurately. In the National Telegraph, we've covered the fact that Alberta is just straight up lying about ICU bed numbers and funding, and the UCP is just going along with it. They're just laying it down and taking a beating that they don't actually deserve here in terms of ICU beds, but then they took the beating and then they locked it down based on the numbers they knew to be false because they didn't have the stomach to fight the medical establishment, which is in line with the Liberals and the NDP, more the NDP in the Alberta province, but you see the problem, right? So I want to sort of back up and go to, okay, so what is Captain Blackface's, third time's a charm? We got Captain Blackface 3.0, and he's now Prime Minister again. Will he learn his lesson? Will he learn his lesson from this election and say, okay, I'm not getting more popular, but no one here opposes me. The Conservative Party is in utter disarray. Aaron O'Toole is afraid to challenge me on any meaningful, substantive platforms. The NDP have to do exactly what I say. The NDP will do exactly what I said. And if not them, the Bloc will, right? All I have to do is say it in French and the Bloc will vote for it. Whoopee. Right? So Justin Trudeau didn't need this election. He thought he could get a majority. And the only thing a majority grants Justin Trudeau is the ability to totally escape any sort of ethics investigation series in the future. But remember, the punishment for an ethics violation, even though it could be to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, the punishment is that. Maybe there's a bit worse. It's like a $300 fine you got one time. That's where we're at. This isn't a true set. The West has no say. No, it doesn't. They will start to do the Conservative Party will put on a dog and pony show next leadership cycle. I'm hearing they will dance Jason Kenney in front of your face and pretend that Jason Kenney is this great guardian of the Canadian West, which I hope you're not dumb enough to fall for after we just went through one O'Toole. We do not need a second. If you're just going to go red torch, just vote for the Patrick Brown option this time. If you're going to do it, just be honest with yourself and vote for Patrick Brown. They're all Patrick Brown, so might as well get the original corrupt, spineless conservative who is afraid to do anything conservative. I wouldn't call him even I think Patrick Brown's not a red Tory. It's like a blue liberal, if anything. I fact-checked this statement thoroughly, and it is true. Okay, so Trudeau, will he be smart enough to say this is 4 years? Will Trudeau say, you know what? I can ride this out as Prime Minister and do whatever I want till 2025. I can't give hundreds of millions of dollars to my friends and just be as corrupt as I want to be. I have to be a bit more clever about that. Can he keep it in his pants? I mean, that is more of a sort of financial and crimes and political crimes. Yet to be seen. I don't think so. But also, again, all the hearings, we can have all the hearings we want on SNC Lavalin and all this. The man is utterly shameless. He's been caught in blackface. He's been caught violating ethics rules. He's been caught red-handed several times, and the media just doesn't ever follow up on it. Okay, so I want to go into this and circle back to how the deep state controls the media. Okay, so the deep state is totally in control of the media, and I will always define what I mean by deep state here. And I say what the deep state is when I talk about it on this show is the deep state I see as just a few bad ideas, apathy, and entropy. So apathy, no one caring one way or the other in a very tacit population, and entropy is just the force of forward motion going forward. So this is how the media has been corrupt. And this is, again, how I'm explaining how you didn't really need $600 million to do it, but how it really does help. Because you look at psychology studies, and woohoo, we get to use Daniel's psychology degree again. So there should be like a graphic on the green, like Daniel's. Maybe we'll do that. Daniel's psychology degree comes in handy again. Woo! We'll have like streamers go. One of the things you see in social science is we're having increased polarization in our society. We all know that. You might have seen data in like, in the 1970s and 60s, people identified Republican or Democrat, agreed at about 6 to 7 out of 10 propositions as someone who also agreed. Now it's like 8 or 9 or 9 or 10. So this comes from the type of society we live in now, with everything being digital, the algorithm pushing us. But you have these institutions that were experiencing the same problems that society is now facing, actually around a decade before society faced these sort of internal polarization problems. So here's the studies you get. If you get people who are, like, let's say 6 out of the 10 liberal, right? Like 9 out of 10 is a hardcore liberal, 10 out of 10 is like hardcore left wing, right? We'll say, right, 6 out of 10, so moderately left wing. If you put 10 people who are 6 out of 10 on left or right, liberal, conservative, if you put them all in a room and have them talk for about an hour, 2 hours, and then you measure their belief system again after that talk, a lot of the 6s go up to 9s, right? Because you're around other people who agree with you, you get social confirmation of all the things you believe, right? You're in an atmosphere where you might not know much about, again, let's say there's 10 issues here, you know about 6 of them, but you're with people who agree with you on 2 or 3 of the other things, and then they bring up, here's what I feel about issue 9, and then you're like, okay, that's me too. So this is sort of how people get more and more polarized, is by spending more time in the ecosystems. And again, these ecosystems do not need radical leftists in them to become radically left. They need a lack of conservatives. They just need to become homogenous. So what has really driven the Trudeau, the state propaganda machine so much is, yes, there's the money, yes, there's the fact, but look, the entire editorial board of the Star is left-wing. The entire staff of the Star is left-wing. So you might go in there as a wide-eyed, moderate liberal. You got a job at the Star. Good for you after your journalism degree. I'm very proud of you. Good job, honey. You've really made it, right? But then after a couple of years working in that environment, you go further and further to the left, right? You could say that's the same problem someone who might go as a moderate conservative into Rebel News, and they go through the system. They get more and more right-wing as they go into that type of environment. It's what humans do. But now what you have is these sort of middle ground institutions that have been chipped away at forcefully by many different factors. So there's been these sort of the tech boom, the fact that, revenue streams are dying due to the internet and social media. So they've tried to become more and more extreme. Then you also have cancel culture. So cancel culture only going one way. So because these institutions were already unbalanced, so there was already more liberals in them than conservatives, a lot of them. What was happening, though, is when the purges started to come and when the institutional pressure was put on, things like cancel culture, right, it drove the remaining conservatives or centrists out of these institutions. And again, driving those conservatives out of the institutions will make them radically more left-wing than adding left-wing people into there. Because, again, it's making a homogenous ecosystem, which drives an echo chamber ecosystem, echoing echoes, right? It drives everyone further and further into the left. All right, now how does this come to Trudeau? So Trudeau's sort of looked at this situation. So by the time Trudeau offered the media bribe, this was already the case. The sea was primed. Everyone was sort of in these left-wing bubbles again. You sort of have these failing left-wing institutions, right? They were getting more and more left-wing. They were failing due to different things with you can go like there are some ridiculous laws, and I took the side of the media organizations because internet publications don't have the same rules as print publications. So we have more regulations on how they can advertise. So really government restrictions make it harder for them to compete. But instead of taking away the government restrictions that make it hard for businesses to compete, because why would you ever want to do that? What they did is they then started to just finance all these institutions on the government dole. So you had organizations that were already going left-wing, failing due to social media, so being hoisted by their own petard, right? They were under attack internally and externally from the radical left. So you then have these institutions who are now propped up by government dollars, right? They need the liberal government money to stay in business. And that's just a cold, hard economic reality to them. So is every writer at the Globe and Mail thinking about this when they write an article? No, I think a lot of them are thinking, I got a story to tell, let me check my sources, blah, 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 spell check this, oh my God, Daniel Boardman has the best Wednesday night show ever. We should really stop suing him. That's a real catastrophe, right? A lot of them doing that. However, when it gets to wide-scale editorial boards and you go higher and higher up the ladder, there's someone there whose job it is to think about the health of the company. And let's take ethics out of this one and what the role of media is. Let's take ethics out of it, okay? And you're the editor and whatever. You're a high-ranking person at the Globe and Mail. You're editor-in-chief. You kind of know what stories might jeopardize your relationship with the government that brings in those millions of dollars that keep you afloat. So is there sort of a meta narrative and meta directive that you might want to take in terms of making sure that the government continues to fund this stuff? And then it comes to sort of this deal with the devil they've made. So you kind of have this understanding, but now there's this sort of also this sort of understanding and vengefulness where Justin Trudeau has sort of also promised to help them with a problem, right? And fight one of their enemies. So they're failing, and because they don't, the corporate media in Canada doesn't have any ethical people left in it. You have this situation where the government's now promising to go after social media, censorship, government regulate social media. So the people who've been able to disseminate information without the corporate journalists, right? They pose a big problem to their bottom line, to their way of life, to their sense of importance. So there's a lot of money and ego tied up into this. So you have Justin Trudeau, one, keeping you afloat, but then also promising to go after your enemies and your competition and, attack, they don't stand up when they attack Rebel News and True North Media. They don't stand up for friendly social media censorship. And when they do, it's an Andrew Coyne type of standing up for our liberties, where it's 2 weeks late and written in a most contrived and verbose way that it really can't go viral or no one can really engage with it in any meaningful way. So, I mean, it's sort of like, esoteric, gobbledygook, free speech good. And I read a philosopher from the 1752 who said, no duh, free speech good. You should have figured that out day one in journalism school, day one. So this is sort of the sort of journalistic ecosystem we have, where tons of money is going in, and Justin Trudeau is promising to go after your enemies, and you're already in a left-wing echo chamber. You're hooked on the government dole, and the government is attacking your enemies. So all it requires is you throw away your principles. So once you throw it, you've already thrown away your principle of defending free speech. So you're already down that pathway of principles you want to throw away. And maybe that's a way for you to just go, okay, you know what? I'm not going to, hurt daddy because daddy gives me the paycheck. That's one way. And the other thing is, a lot of the journalists, as I said, I don't think they're actively thinking about the $600 million that the government gives them to be their propaganda arm. I don't think they think about that when they're writing their stories. I don't think it crosses their mind. However, I do think they have heard the argument, right? And this is how people work. This is, psychology, maybe not 101, 202. People like themselves, okay? A lot of people think that they are pretty smart, right? A lot of people put pretty high value in their own opinion and their own character. Nature of humanity, okay? People like themselves, except really depressed people who don't. So you have people like this, who then you get people like me and people like you saying the reason, Globe and Mail is bought and paid for. Trudeau's bribed the media, they're bought and paid for. So you're a global news journalist and you're looking at that and you're going, no, I've always been left-wing, right? I don't say these things because Trudeau pays me to. That would make me a bad person. And I'm a good person because most people think they're a good person. I'm a good person. The reason I say these things is these ideas are right. And if an independent counsel says that this is trusted journalism, well, it's trusted because it's true. And I'm very good at my job. This is one of the great ways to sort of brainwash people into doing what you want, is you give them a choice of saying, like, have you been bribed? Or do you morally agree with this? And this is some Chinese POW camp stuff that I've gone into before, but it's all fits on the same sort of wavelength we're talking about. And we need to get into the other political parties. Okay, so what will Justin Trudeau do with his new mandate? I think there's a sense of it's going to have to wait and find out. You're going to have to wait and find out to see, is he going to prime for another election, or is he just going to say, you know what, I kind of have a mandate to do what I want anyway. I can figure it out. Like, the NDP won't stop me. I'll just go for it. Okay. So that's the Liberal Party. The NDP, hilarious. I know we should go into the Conservatives, but the Conservatives will take more time and I might get sidetracked. So let's just do the funnier parties. The NDP. The NDP is hilarious. Jagmeet, my boy. Jug meet and greet an idiot. One, that's actually a real thing. Jagmeet Singh did have a jug meet and greet hosted outside his riding. That was his normal thing, and I find that hilarious. So the Jugsters. Yeah, the Juggernaut, the Jagsters. Either way, what he tried to do is institute a cult of personality, and it did not work. Right? There's a great tweet from the NDP is like they spent all their money on advertising. It was nothing substance was said. The NDP. It was like, I'm Jagmeet. I'm handsome and have fancy clothes. Do you hate the rich? I hate the rich. Vote for me, and I'll make all your problems going away by making the rich pay their fair share. That was, that was sort of the NDP's strategy, which was funny because they were broke, right? So this is like, someone's going to ping me for this for being, but like, this is ghetto economics. When you think of how the NDP ran their campaign, it's hilarious because they were broke. And I was saying from before, like if you wanted, like the NDP weren't going to push Trudeau around or challenge him in 2019 because they were broke. They were absolutely broke, right? So what they did as a broke party in the next election, so in this election cycle, they didn't have money, but what they did is they sort of where they went to Money Mart, got a big loan, and put all their money into gold teeth grills. Nothing of substance. They didn't buy food. They didn't buy a new apartment. They didn't, repair the apartment, do this. What they did is they got giant grills for Jagmeet Singh's TikTok videos. That's essentially what they tried to do. Is they tried to turn Jagmeet Singh into like a personality figure. Like Jagmeet, he's really famous and like he's on TikTok and like, yeah, he's cool. The NDP is cool with a cool guy doing TikToks. Yeah, that didn't work. Failed spectacularly, and it was not the best use of money, as Darlene's going to point out. Money means nothing to him. The NDP probably didn't understand what money is, which don't forget he loves to mention he's vegetarian, like all vegetarians, of course. All right, so the Jugsters. So what's the future of the NDP, and will there actually be some pushback to Jagmeet Singh? And I do think there will be some. Now, I do think Jagmeet Singh will be more successful in defeating the party pushback than Annamie Paul was, because Annamie Paul is a decent, intelligent woman who, from what I understood, had good motivations and was not a crazy person, and her friends were not crazy people. Jagmeet Singh is friends with all types of crazy people. Jagmeet Singh is, Jagmeet Singh, Cal standing extraordinaire. So when Jagmeet Singh faces internal party criticism for how he ran the election as a cult of personality, he will call out who it is. He will call him or her a racist. He will say that person is evil. They will be doxxed and harassed, and he will unleash a mob of angry NDPers upon them. So Jagmeet Singh will push. I think Jagmeet Singh will go for people's jugulars if they go after him. So in the sense that Annamie Paul did not. Annamie Paul kind of sat there and took it. So that's the NDP's future, is will the NDP challenge Jagmeet Singh? Jagmeet Singh has had no electoral success, and he's not a very electable person in Canada for a multitude of reasons. And so I've always been a big fan of Jagmeet, because I do think destroying the NDP is a top priority for the future of Canada, and no one is better at doing that than Jagmeet Singh. So continue to do what you're doing, Jugs. We love you and we support you. That's why Jagmeet Singh wins Uninterrupted Hero of the Week for being himself. You know what? Hero of the Year. I want everyone to take a stop. Like the video if you like and appreciate Jagmeet Singh's efforts to destroy the NDP, because you know what? Someone has to do it. And I don't see you going around destroying the NDP by being an idiot. That's Jagmeet's job. So, guys, big props to Jagmeet Singh. Let him know you appreciate him. Point out on Twitter what a great job he's doing of destroying the NDP and really taking one for the team there, and doing his patriotic duty as a Canadian to destroy the NDP. Good for him. Their party is broke and a joke. Not in that order, but who cares? All right, that is the NDP. Let's go down to Tree Party. Okay. Tree Party. What's her future? Annamie Paul has quit. She left. She could not take the torrent of anti-Semitism. So the Green, I think I agree with JJ McCullough's view on the Green Party here. He put a tweet that I agreed with in terms of the future of the NDP, the Green Party. The Green Party, Elizabeth May said she wouldn't rule out becoming interim leader. So the Green Party has a choice. Bring it back, Elizabeth May, and just admit this is the Elizabeth May cult of personality. It's the Elizabeth May show. I know I've slammed the PPC for being the Maxime Bernier show, and doing that. But this is why I don't want the PPC to become the Green Party, which is this sort of cult of Elizabeth May personality that will break down when she leaves, right? You know, as a PPC voter, I am really, really on the PPC to build some infrastructure. Make it not the Maxime Bernier show. Have a constitution. Have many high-ranking personalities and a Rolex wheel of people in the PPC that the party can survive if Maxime Bernier, gets sick and has to, go away or for whatever reason. Right now, as it's constituted today, September, October, late 2021, the PPC will not survive the downfall of Maxime Bernier. And that's a shame. And they need to build the infrastructure of that party ASAP to make sure that they have a better chance going forward. So that's the PPC stuff. So the Green Party's in an interesting position is they could either go with Elizabeth May and admit it's a cult of personality, or just full on embrace anti-Semitism and bring in Dimitri Lascaris, and then they will be the official party where we can just no longer hide it. Their official slogan will be trees good, Jews bad. So will the Green Party just become a full-on raving, radical anti-Semitic cesspool of nonsense? Likely, half of it is. Or will they become the Elizabeth May cult of personality? Because clearly a well put together, thoughtful, reasonable, electable leader is not in the cards for them because they did not want it. Okay. All right. So that brings us to the French party, which no one cares about. Bibliothèque. That's all we need to know. The same thing goes from 2019 said before. We don't need to talk about them because French doesn't even exist. I'm convinced that French as a language doesn't exist. French is not a language and China is not a country. Okay. This brings us, we'll do the PPC and then we'll do the Conservative Party and we can kind of do them together. And I'll go on. What the PPC did is I argue that they kind of did win this election. Now, they didn't win a seat, but they showed significant gains. They gained a base. They ran on issues that should bring people in. But the PPC will fail if they do not form concrete EDAs, get them staffed, and then start doing the groundwork. You cannot just go around the country to rally after rally to the same people. It's not how you win elections. Yes, there is a place for rallies. And yes, Trump did great on the rallies. And yes, Maxime Bernier should continue to do those things. But they need to do more. They need to develop an on-the-ground game. You need to be, as the PPC, you need to know you need to identify your potential voters. You need to identify people with conservative or libertarian ideologies. Tell them about the PPC. Find out if they're supporters. If they're supporters, figure out a way to drive them to the polls. And if they're on the fence, you got to turn them into supporters. That's what you have to do. What the PPC is currently doing is running around on Twitter and at rallies preaching to the converted. That will not win you elections. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong in the PPC. They're right on vaccine passports. They're right on interprovincial free trade. They're right on a lot of things policy-wise. But they will never reach where they want to reach. They will never become a force to be reckoned with and to be listened to until they develop this ground game. And I get it doesn't really affect you, but what I'm talking about here is this is how it affects the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party, if they see the PPC develop a ground game, form EDAs, start to identify voters, get out there, start pulling their voters away from them because they actually have better policy that people agree with more and they can get their name out there, that will strike the fear of literal God into the hearts of Aaron O'Fool and all his merry gang of fools, and force them to end the charade where we run a red Tory against a red Tory, pretending one of them isn't a red Tory, and then bogarting everyone else out of the leadership race. This will end that and force the Conservative Party to become a Conservative Party. Or this will enable the PPC to start gaining seats in Parliament and then maybe become part of a balance of power. It will not happen without this. Right? Find ridings, get in there, turn people into PPC supporters. You have to do that. You have to be on the ground. Like, and it's the problem with the PPC is they can staff candidates. They get a lot of people who want to do the right thing and want to run for the PPC. I've met a lot of PPC candidates who are just going there and, they're fed up with the political system. They want to do something about it. They believe in the PPC's platform. So they're going to go out there and they're going to do their best. And God bless them. Okay. God bless them. No shots taken against those people. I think they felt a patriotic call to duty and they did it. Great. You need to have entire infrastructure staffed around that. You needed to get those people into boards, you need to form EDAs, you need to have this. And the PPC is really good at beating a wartime drum. They can beat the drums during wartime, right? But in terms of preparing for war, right, this is sort of like no, that's not, the Russian army is not a good analogy here. Scratch that one from the record. But they're really good at sort of, getting people up for wartime and during the election. They're not very good at the times in between that, which is kind of, preparation is half the battle, right? And that's, I'm sure that's somewhere in Sun Tzu's something. But that is their big problem. All right, I like the start of this. The PPC cannot become the Mad Max party. True, since people chose the PPC because their strong and independent beliefs on personal freedoms and personal responsibilities made their decision, not their ignorance and entitlement issues, as in the Liberal Party. The fact confounds and confuses those who have been brain damaged by mainstream media and government propaganda. There's no principles that can undermine the motivation of those who have principles. Yeah, okay, yeah. I think this is pretty well summed up, Ken. People went in there with principles. And the PPC has won over people like Ken, who, again, you become a bit different. When you're watching the show on Wednesday night, you're people who consume political content willfully. You're people who are motivated on Canadian political issues, and you, to an extent, have a much greater understanding of political issues than the general population, right? People who, people who watch baseball tend to know more about the rules of baseball than people who don't watch baseball except during the World Series, right? That's sort of you watching. Okay, so the PPC has you guys, and they can win people like you over by saying, here's our platform. Engaged, motivated Canadians who understand politics. Here's our platform. Here's what we stand for. And you guys are the type of people who would look at, okay, here's what the PPC says. Here's the Conservative Party says. I like this party better than that party because of X reason. But you're not the majority of people when it comes to an election, right? I wish you were. I do this show to increase this size of the population. I'd rather have, I don't believe in mandatory voting, but I do believe in expanding the number of people who are motivated to vote. I do believe in encouraging people to be more politically active and aware. So the problem, though, is realistically is to win. It's not, I could endorse the PPC on the show. I did. Thousands of people saw the PPC endorsement video. That's not really the target audience. Maybe it pulled dozens of people from the CPC into the PPC, or pulled a few dozen from apathy to PPC, maybe. But again, we're talking about a few dozen here from thousands. Like, this is not how you push. It is like, now is the time for the PPC. Like, now is the PPC's real crunch time. Like, it's the next year. It's the next year with no election. Can the PPC start to do the groundwork? Can they start to build the infrastructure of the party? Get, people in, get big names in there, get people who might want to run for leader. Maybe, again, this might be a sword Maxime Bernier will have to fall on in order to get attention to the PPC in the middle of an election cycle and build up more media coverage. They're probably going to need to have a leadership race. Right? Conservative leadership race brings in some attention. These leadership races bring in media attention, keep the party relevant, right? This might be a sword Maxime Bernier has to fall on, is build the infrastructure, the EDAs and the Constitution, which allow for a leadership election, because leadership elections can provide some benefit to your party by keeping you in the news, right? People will pay attention here and there to the Green Party when they get a new leader. And then, the new leader has a few weeks or a week, so to sort of make a bit of an impact. That is, there. So talk a bit how fast Saskatchewan and Alberta can organize to separate. It's not going to happen. There's no one willing to do it. So at a political level, Jason Kenney's not going to do it. The Maverick Party is a fake. Scott Schewing going to do it? Like, who's the politician right now in legitimate leadership condition who has the political will to talk about separation at a time like this? And it's not, again, I've supported the Wexit move, and I totally get why the West wants to celebrate. But in terms of the logistics of it happening right now, no. It's not there. There's no one there to do it. You don't have anyone with the will and skill to pull that lever. And that's the truth of it. It's nothing against you guys in Alberta. This is like this is whatever. Talking about Buffalo Party, like, no. I'll believe when I see it. When a party can get an actual Wexit and there's a leader who sort of has the will to run a gauntlet, like serious will to take some pushback, it is going to take a very special historic personality type to pull that off. And right now, I don't see any political leader with the will and skill. So not just the will to do it and the ability to run the gauntlet, but you're going to need a rather charismatic guy to do it as well. And I just who there is oozing with charisma, pizzazz, competence, and a sense of moral purpose to do it. Who fits that description in Canadian politics, right? So that's the problem you're going up with there again. So how fast can it be done? Not in the near future. Like, it's definitely not going to be a major, well, especially while there's still talks about COVID and mandates. Like, it'd have to be a single issue. It'd have to be a pretty single issue thing in the West. COVID would have to be over. Trudeau would have to be attacking the energy industry. There'd have to be sort of an instigating event at this point to cause someone to go up. Wayne Gretzky. Maybe, but I doubt it. And isn't Gretzky from Ontario? Okay. This brings us to the future of the Conservative Party. So it looks like the Conservative Party plans to just sue me forever. Whoopee. What a brilliant strategy. All right. So there's a reason why I termed election 44 race to the bottom. And I think at this point, everyone agrees with my assessment of the race. It was a race to the bottom. No one really knock your socks up there. So the Conservatives. What's the future of the Conservative Party? Conservative Party, there will be a leadership review of Erin O'Toole. Here's some insider information I got. A couple days after the election, the sort of Syntax network, whatever network the Conservative MPs need to log into to sort of do their political work. Like, you need to log in to sort of, there's a system to recall all your lawn signs, and everyone sent it out to. But this network has access to all the different voting and email lists of the Conservative Party hoards, like a dragon on treasure, for a good reason. I mean, this is kind of how the digital economy works. We can go into that another day. But everyone was locked out of the system. For days, they did not want any MPs getting access to any of the Conservative mailing lists in the days after the election defeat, because they were afraid that MPs would start to mail out petitions to remove Erin O'Toole. So Erin O'Toole has significant institutional backing. The idiots at the top love O'Toole because he is a puppet for them, and it's more like this. They might be weary of trying to run another fake leadership campaign because things are getting a bit crazier. Again, we talked about it in the narrative. It looks like the planning on running Jason Kenney has always had federal ambitions. He will play the role of Erin O'Toole, which is red Tory, pretending to be blue Tory before he flips back to red Tory. And playing the part of Peter MacKay is Patrick Brown, and Peter MacKay played the part of Patrick Brown, so it's all come full circle. Patrick Brown is the first Conservative to back blasphemy laws, Islamic blasphemy laws. He's a big fan of those. In Motion 103, the Ontario version, and he is also a big fan of the carbon tax. Tax that carbon. That's Patrick Brown's number one song. So tax that carbon, la 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 la. Let's go support Khalistan. That is Patrick Brown's new single coming out called La 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 La, Carbon Tax McGee. Also, why is everyone around me a Khalistani? All right. I'm killing it. Absolutely killing it with jokes that 3 people understand. But I'm saying them anyway. So this will be the future of the Conservative Party, is the Conservative Party will not learn a lesson. When you say you cannot teach an old dog new tricks, nothing is more true than the Conservative Party of Canada. I've been saying for years, and it looks like it is proving true again. There is no one I have met with more strident and religious cult-like fervent beliefs than the insiders at the Conservative Party. The insiders and higher-ups at the Conservative Party are dead set convinced that this is the year 2006. It is always the year 2006, and it will forever be the year 2006. There is nothing you can say to someone like Fred DeLeroy, who ran Aaron O'Toole's campaign, to convince him that it's the year 2021 and next year is 2022. It is impossible. He is dead set convinced this is the year 2006, and next year is the year 2006, and it is forever the year 2006, because all of our data, which is flawed from the begin with, and the money you're spending is being used to shoot yourself in the foot. You don't realize that just get me in there and I'll fix all your algorithm. It's not even that your algorithm is flawed. It's the data you're feeding into the algorithm is skewed from the begin with. So what you're even feeding in, never mind. Okay. The Conservative Party doesn't understand social media, doesn't understand Twitter. That's why they'll continue to put up fools like Aaron O'Toole, who are these very polished, skillful politicians who always have this 2006 playbook of you don't say this, you don't say this is how you act. And Canadians and Americans and Europeans, we can see this now. We can see through political BS. We can see someone who we know is just saying what they want to, what they think of saying, and they don't really believe it, and they're polished, and they avoid questions like this and that. People don't want that anymore. It doesn't have the same value, right? Because people are exposed to this 24/7. It is not curated through the mainstream media. Again, social media exists, so we've seen every angle of these people. Now human beings can sense when someone is being disingenuous. This is a problem that a lot of politicians face. This is one of the reasons why Justin Trudeau got elected in 2015, because he was able to play himself off as a different type of human being, a vapid one, albeit, but it was sunny ways. We're going to do things differently, this, that, and whatever. And yes, there's still some political nonsense to him, but because there was a little less of that and some shine, people like that, right? Same thing for Trump. Love him or hate him, Trump was unique. Trump was Donald Trump. Trump was not Donald Trump. A Donald Trump press conference was not the product of a strategy firm looking at analytical data from a mailing list that they had, blah, 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 blah. Donald Trump was Donald Trump. That was a human being. The Hillbot 3000 was, plug in the Hill microchip and like, I am Hillary Clinton and I bombed Libya. And, well, I'm not going to get into the foreign policy thing because that's another hour of me sort of being mad at everyone's foreign policy opinions who aren't mine. Okay, so that's the big problem. So the Conservative Party, what is their plan? To never learn from the mistakes. If at first it doesn't succeed, try again. If it gets rid of Aaron O'Toole, we'll get another O'Fool. Will it be Jason Kenney? Will it be Patrick Brown? Who knows? Will it be me? No, it won't, because there was like a sign. There's like a wanted sign with me, like on a Conservative Party headquarters, like, do not allow in. If you see this man, sue him. If this man reports on a liberal terrorism financing scandal, please sue him. Aren't you the Conservative Party? Isn't that a liberal scandal? But who knows? Okay. I don't know why I'm bringing this one up or why Matt put it in, but I guess this is a great update to end the show on. This just in, Britney Spears won her money freedom back from her dad. Jamie Spears, though she lives in California, she's one step closer to being more free than an Albertan. Yeah, okay. Not wrong. So thank you everyone for watching tonight. I'll be back next Wednesday. There'll be a video tomorrow. Maybe I'll go back to watching the CBC. Maybe it'll just be, if I have an issue that I think is more important, we'll do that. Guys, remember, always trust Doug Ford. If you're in Ontario, yes, okay. We need, vaccine mandates might be unconstitutional. They might violate your civil liberties. They might, having to digitally register a QR code and have the government track you all the time. But fear not, Minister of Digital Government, Khalid Rashid, is uninterrupted. Daniel Bourne's uninterrupted, most trusted politician of all time. So this is a 100% commercial for Doug Ford and Khalid Rashid. If you leave the show now, you will be sent to prison. So you do have to bear the next 30 seconds of this commercial. We just want to remind you and Uninterrupted that we love and trust Doug Ford and Khalid Rashid. The fact that Khalid Rashid had the bravery, stunning and brave. Khalid Rashid is stunning. He is beautiful and he is brave. He was so stunning and so brave that he used his position as MP or MPP to get up in the legislature and praise the Muslim Brotherhood. He's my guy. Okay. That takes guts, because we all know supporting the Muslim Brotherhood is pretty much anything you can do that now in Canadian politics. But to get up in the legislature and scream to the hilltops, that is why Khalid Rashid is the most trusted person. So yes, he might go to mosques that advocate for the murder of Hindus and then fund organizations which try and murder those Hindus. But he is Khalid mother effing Rashid. And everyone should trust Khalid Rashid to have all of their personal information and track them wherever they go, because Khalid Rashid is a man of integrity who only supports organizations that advocate for the genocide of Hindus and Jews. And you know what? If that doesn't make you love him as much as I love Khalid Rashid, well, then there's no hope for you, and off to the gulag for you. No rice on Saturdays if you do not love Khalid Rashid. And again, promo code, you can, if you like, comment, subscribe to the channel, you will be entered into a contest to get a free tattoo on your lower back, just like I have. It is your name plus Khalid Rashid circled by a heart forever. So I love Khalid Rashid, depending on who you are, forever. Just make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and you too could be entered into our sweepstakes to get a free tramp stamp of how much you love Khalid Rashid. Good night.